Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. I can hear you ask, okay, David, what have you got in store for us in this video? Well, do you not like the very slim looking dome, or slim as in not very thick pieces of timber? Well, let me add something to the equation, and it is the actual dome. So what I have got here for you is the underbattens. They are going to, for me, play a significant role in the dome, so I've added them. The idea being that you can place under the struts a layer of whatever material you choose, but I suggest like a nice varnished or oiled batten, in contrast to the perhaps painted struts, giving you quite a nice contrast. And they can be removed, perhaps, and recoated should that ever be necessary. That's a choice. You can paint the whole lot. Probably that would look just as nice for your particular application. Now, at the moment, I've only, I've only made them 10 millimeters thick for the, cosmetic reasons. If you want to hold something in place like shadow cloth or insect screen, maybe you want to go a little bit thicker, maybe 15 or 18 millimeters or whatever. Something. Make it whatever thickness you want. But at least this is a starting point for the modelling, but for a consideration. So, yeah. It also means that you could use an inferior, if you're going to paint the struts, you could use what some would class as an inferior grade of timber. Pinus radiata that we use here for our general framing would be the choice for me. Painted up, it'll look great. The timbers would need to be reasonably clean, because these are effectively all structural elements, so knots and what have you, that would be frowned upon. Hardwoods would be great, but then why would you want to paint them? So oiling them, but in the weather, longevity, maybe you want to paint. Same with the battens if you want, but I'm just making that possibility that a nicer grade or type of material might be beneficial for our consideration. Aesthetic considerations. Now I'm just trying to orientate myself. So we're underneath here looking at the lovely hardwood or oiled, varnished, urethane timbers. And what else do we have there? Oh, we have got a little disc. Why have we got a disc there? Well, that's a cover piece for, and if I just get rid of the cover piece. What have we got here? Well, I'll get rid of the underbattens. Well, here we've got the tabbed plate in position underneath the struts, screwed or bolted in place, and just trying to orientate it. The old 3D issue when you're working in reverse. Anyway, there you go. There's the tabs recessed down so that they don't interfere with the battens, and not shown but indicated here, the holes may be considered for screws or bolts. And you say, David, because I know that you like asking these tricky questions, David, why isn't the bolt in the hole? Well, at least you asked. That bolt is the bolt. Had it gone through the tab when it's on the top surface, and you can see how far out of alignment they are. That's just because of the angles that things as they move down from the top to the bottom, the angle creates that issue. And why I said in another video, I alluded to it or mentioned it specifically, that bolting through from the bottom, which is this is the main main hub position, then bolting up through that hole, it's a bit of a issue trying to find the correct hole position in the top hub. Can you determine it in the model here? Yes, but would you be able to do that successfully in the real world application? What would more than likely be the case is that we'd determine that measurement, top and bottom hubs, tabs, and we would say, well, this is X millimeters back on this one, and we find the corresponding amount up top, drill the holes independently, start the hole from the bottom, which is the most critical one after all, move on up, and then come down from the top. That was if you were using two hubs, top and bottom, one top and one bottom. So that's a consideration. If you're just using the bottom one, well, then it doesn't matter, and it's actually quite a straightforward task. Make our cuts, make our holes, and bolt everything up. Everyone's happy. So that's a few of the drawings and the considerations that we're looking at. Under battens, yay, covers the hub, but as you note here, they have the same impact that they have to mount to the surfaces that we deemed is required. The struts themselves and the battens will be relative to each other at different heights. Now, is that going to be aesthetically acceptable? Because some people would look at it and go, well, why aren't they the same level as as each other? Well, it's called a dome. So this is one of the things that you may or may not want to do. But as I've been saying, banging on endlessly, while you're doing the drawings, I suggest you do it this way, because as soon as you put the struts out of alignment, it can be a little bit tricky if you're still trying to develop up the model. Afterwards, yeah, that's fine, do what you want. But, I don't know. I honestly don't know whether it's acceptable aesthetically or not. Let's try and get back on top. Where to from here? Well, I kind of have to work or make this model work so that that there will be a hub on top as well. Necessary? Probably not, but probably not doesn't satisfy me, and I'm suggesting that you allow for the fact that there will be. If only because you want to have a very, very strong dome. The issue comes about for me is not if this is a 2.5 metre long strut here and a bit of leverage. Yeah, well, as soon as you get up a bit bigger, that leverage might be sufficient to warrant a plate on top to neutralise that leverage issue. But what happens if you make a dome that is somewhat bigger than this 6 by 6 metre? These struts become longer. The loads effectively become higher because you've got a bigger surface area. So you may decide that really just for being a bit prudent or a bit conservative, let's put a hub on the top surface as well in all or at all of the joints. So I have to allow for the fact that I might as well make the model, with a plate top and bottom. So that's what I will be doing. It's a bit more work to sort it out, but it is quite revealing in that you're not assuming anymore. You know, like this. Does this look good enough for you? To me, yes, it does. I'd be happy with that. After all, it's a flaming dome. And yeah. The other thing that you may want to do here, and it's something that we've looked at in another video, I think, is if you don't want to have the hassle of a upper hub, what happens if you make a solid piece of timber, plywood, in layers that fills this void 100%? That would be interesting, because then what happens is that the forces don't go through the struts, through the hub, and then through the other struts. It actually comes through and is directly pushing against a solid built-up section of plywood, and all of that energy from those higher loads is helped by that plate. I like the idea a lot. I'm going to be examining that because it addresses a lot of the problems with a bottom positioned hub. Because imagine if wind load or snow load, which are the two issues I've got for the snow load and wind load would be the vertical loading forces. These points here would want to move inwards. If they're pushing up against something solid, they can't. So just under that force alone, a solid infill piece here is not a bad idea. And that's why I've always liked the steel tube hub idea. Because of that reason, the struts are pushing up against something rigid. That will take the load demand off of the bottom plate. Interesting. Well, it is for me. But having a solid piece up here, it means that I can run light-ish tabs onto it and bolt or heavy screw down to it. So they don't have to be 3 millimeters thick, attaching somehow through like the layered tabs or the donut, which you could still do, but something so basic as a layered piece of ply, glued together, bolt, screwed, whatever, but make it one homogeneous piece, then tabs taken from the top here onto the I'm going to call it the timber hub, the centre hub, means that any wind uplift is resisted. Man, that's easy. And it's a lot easier than having a second hub on the top. Is that true? Well, prove me wrong. Remember, I'm not an engineer. But if the whole area is stuck, like this, all 8 struts here pushing up against this imaginary. I've already made it the hub, by the way. I should have actually brought it into this model. Don't know whether it's actually in this file or not. Let's go have a bit of a wander. Have I made it here? No, I may not have kept it in this. No, I have got it somewhere, but I thought it may have been in this file. Why don't I have it in this file? Anyway, I've got a solid ply hub in here, and the model shows that being the tabs attaching to wherever these tabs have to be. They don't even have to be recessed any more than the thickness of the tab, and they don't have to relate to the varying, respective heights to each other. They just go straight on the surface and bolt in, screw in. Yeah, so, okay, so guess what? That's going to have to be the next video when I find the flaming file. I don't know where I've put it. Okay, I'll get back to you on that one. So there we go. Under battens. Oh, and we've got the over battens as well. That tidies everything up as well and serves a function. One of the things that I was mentioning is in another video, whether I've loaded it or not, I'm not sure now, but The over battens are really directed at people that are going to be applying a rigid cladding. This may well be the, how would you say, the structure that, say, plywood is screwed to. Now, whether that ply is the final layer, which I probably suggest it's not, it might be the substrate for the actual waterproofing. It may also require waterproofing of itself. If you're making a liquid applied membrane onto the ply, then between the ply may need a sealant or some such, and having a backing surface, you can apply the sealant. You'd have to put a bond breaker on it. There's all these structural things, but a bond breaker and sealant onto that, etc. So, yeah. It also can be that these battens don't need to be restricted to the width of the strut. They can be a little bit wider, again, for the purposes of allowing you a little bit more landing surface on the actual, for the plywood. Now, that's not a silly idea, because 50 millimeters wide, that becomes 25 millimeters wide, and then your fixings on your cladding, your plywood, have to be seriously considered just how far from the edge they need to be. Still doable. It's sort of things done day in, day out in the construction field. If you've built anything, you'll know. So that's not a problem. But there is a minimum distance that you would like to keep your screw fixings, nails perhaps, but screws preferably, back from the edge of the plywood. Possibly there's I'm going to say between 10 and 15 millimeters. I'd probably be going more like 15 millimeters away from the edge. There may be a specification for that, but hey, we're building a dome, aren't we? And I'm not an engineer. So that's a consideration. It is endless, all the considerations. So I'm just limiting myself at the moment to say, hey, let's just stay with 50. Any of those other ideas are just options that can be looked at later on. Rightio, well, that's it. I'm going to wander off. Just lit the fire. It's getting a bit chilly here. Going down into the minus Celsius temperatures tonight. So, yeah, warm the place up. And that's another thing. No, how to penetrate the dome if you want to put a chimney in it for a log burner. But that's a whole different story. One that I will probably leave alone for someone else. Rightio, I'll see you in the next one now. Okay, bye.